I'm Matthew.
I'm Trento.
And I'm CJ.
In this video, we're going to be talking about the original inhabitants of the Cape.
Have you ever wondered how Cape Town got into this beautiful city it is today?
We're going to be talking about the Khoisan in the Cape, and the colonists. I hope you enjoy.
The Khoisan, where and when they originated. Our topic is the Cape, and who were its original inhabitants. The simple answer for that is the Khoisan. They were made up of two different groups, the Khoikhoi and the San. The main differences between the two groups are that the San are hunter-gatherers, which mean that they don't stay in one place. They move around in search of foods and crops, and the Khoikhoi did the opposite. They mainly stayed in one place and farmed animals and crops. They would be resourceful when they killed an antelope. They would use every single piece of the animal, the hide for clothes, the bones for tools, and they would eat every single piece of meat on the animal. The San believed in the Kachin, the creator of many things. Kachin translates to mantis, which is why the San respected the praying mantis. What were they? When the Europeans came to Africa, they thought that the indigenous people were very primitive. How wrong they were. Little did the Europeans know how clever the San were. Even though San were using Stone Age technology, these hunter-gatherers were very skilled. In the San society, men would go find and hunt animals, and women would look after crops and farm roots. They would always be very respectful of the wildlife. They would only hunt what they could eat and never hunt for sport. The San would paint on walls using clays, and they believed these paintings gave them power because they were aimed towards their gods. The Khoikhoi are a different story. They were also hunter-gatherers with one big difference. They were herders too. As the Khoikhoi were nomadic, they would always ensure that they would have enough cattle. The Khoikhoi also had hierarchy systems in their society. There was a chief, head elders, servants, and other members in the village that had specific hierarchical positions based on how much cattle they owned, but later the Khoikhoi and the Khoisan joined together to be known as the Khoisan. Movement of the Khoisan before they came to the Cape. The Khoisan were in the northern west area of South Africa before they were in Cape Town.
Now we'll hand over to CJ to talk about the Khoisan in the Cape.
It's important to understand exactly why the Khoisan decided to move to the Cape. As Trento mentioned, the Khoisan came from the Kalahari, and they decided to move in the early 1600s. Although little is known about how exactly they came to the Cape, it is understood that it happened over a period of time known today as the Koran Treks. The main reason for this was that they were pushed out by new settlers from Europe and other regions. Although the Khoisan were very unlucky being pushed out of their homeland in the Kalahari by the European settlers, they were very fortunate to stumble across the Cape. The Cape had a number of brilliant agricultural benefits for nomadic tribes. For example, the Cape had an exceptional climate due to the fact it was the border for two oceans, being the Atlantic Ocean, home to the cold Benguela Current, and the Indian Ocean, which had a warm Agulhas Current. These oceans helped regulate the climate, which compared to the inland meant the temperature was a lot less volatile. On top of this, the ground and soil had an extremely high number of minerals and pH level, meaning it would help a lot for crop growth. There was also easy fresh water access due to the mountain. Now that we understand how the Khoisan came to the Cape and why they came to the Cape, it's important to understand their decline and how they left. As mentioned previously, they were initially pushed down by European settlers in about 1600. Sadly, not long after, in 1652, the Portuguese arrived in the Cape, and through this, the Khoisan were quite quickly suppressed and turned into a cheap labor force. Not soon after this, there was a huge smallpox outbreak, which came from the Portuguese sailors, which wiped out a large number of Khoisan members. Finally, the Khoisan and Xhosa ended up being split up so that they would both be easier to manage hence leading to the downfall of the Khoisan.
Now we'll hand over to me, Matthew, to talk about the colonists of the Cape. Dutch East India Company, also known as United East India Company, was a trading company founded by the Dutch Republic in 1602. The job of the company was to protect the Dutch Republic's trades in the Indian Ocean and to help in the War of Independence against Spain. Throughout the 17th century, the company was at its most powerful and was instrumental in the Dutch Empire in the East Indies. In 1647, the Dutch ship Nieuwer Holland wrecked off the coast of the Cape. The survivors built a small fort named Sand Fort of the Cape of Good Hope. After a year, they were rescued by a fleet of ships commanded by W.G. de Jong. Upon their return to Holland, they persuaded the Dutch East India Company to set up a trade centre in the Cape. In 1652, an expedition of 90 Calvinists, commanded by Jan van Riebeeck, founded the first permanent settlement near the Cape of Good Hope. They arrived in 5 ships on the 6th of April, 1652, in modern-day Table Bay. The first wooden fort was then constructed along with 2 redoubts called Kekut and Den Hoop. Over the next few years, the colony began to thrive, with the first baby being born in June of 1652, the first vessel made of Cape timber being launched in 1655, and the first wine pressed from Cape grapes was in 1659. On the 2nd of January 1666, the first stone was laid in the new, now famous castle, named the Castle of Good Hope. Earlier in the video, Trento and CJ discussed who the Khoikhoi and San were and why they settled in the Cape. For the colonists, during the initial periods of the colony, the most persistent problem were the native people. They often tried to steal cattle and other resources. The colonists decided to solve the problem by building fences around their farms and creating 3 watchhouses. The whole settlement was then protected from any incursions. Saldanha Bay, Dustin Island and Robben Island were also made trade outposts. The building of all these defences to protect the colonists was of course only a temporary solution, and soon disputes broke out. This consisted of multiple attacks and counterattacks, and were called the Khoikhoi Dutch Wars. The first of these wars was in 1659 because of a dispute about cattle. The Dutch sought refuge in their fort and created fortified fences along the Liesbeek River, which restricted the movement of the Khoikhoi. The second of the wars was in 1673. The Dutch discovered fertile grazing ground for their cattle in the interior northeast of the Khoikhoi. The Khoikhoi were willing to trade with the Dutch, but the Dutch terms of trade resulted in the outbreak of war. The Dutch attacked one of the Khoikhoi tribes and took approximately 1,800 heads of livestock. The third of these wars was in 1874. This was a follow-up attack on a different Khoikhoi tribe. Weapons were taken from the tribes in addition to almost 5,000 heads of livestock. This war continued until 1677, when there was a submission by the Khoikhoi tribe, and this allowed the Dutch to expand into the Khoikhoi land. Now that we have some background about the topic, we interviewed some people that lived in Cape Town to see what they thought about it.
Hi, my name is CJ Gordon, and I'm here joining my younger brother Reynard. Reynard, I'm going to ask you a couple questions based on your knowledge of the Khoisan. Firstly, I'd like to ask you, where do you think the Khoisan are originally from, and why do you think they were able to stay relevant up until the 1860s?
It's a good question. I believe that the Khoisan were originally from the Western Cape, around Cape Town. And I believe they were able to stay relevant due to the fact that they had the resources such as food and water, which would allow them to stay alive for a very long period of time.
The second part of your answer there is completely right. They were able to stay relevant due to the fact that they were a nomadic tribe. But the first part was wrong. You said they were from Cape Town, but they were actually from the Kalahari. Right now, my second question to you is, why do you think the Khoisan came to the Cape once they were pushed out of the Kalahari from European settlers?
Well, I believe that the Khoisan recognized that the Cape area had very, very good resources such as water, winter rainfall, and the perfect climate to feed their cows and to live sustainably for a long period of time.
Again, you're right. Because they were a nomadic tribe, they really needed to use the land very well. The soil here was extremely rich, and on top of that, the winter rainfall and the water coming off the mountain really helped with that. Right now, my final question to you is, how do you think the downfall of the Khoisan occurred?
I believe that as European settlers came to the Cape, they pushed out the Khoisan, and Khoisan had to move away, which is unfortunate, meaning that they had to cope with the different resources of their new lands, and they might not really be able to survive there as well as they did in the Cape.
Yeah, again, you'd be pretty right in saying that. But the main reason that their population decreased so fast was because of a smallpox epidemic that occurred. So, Reynard Ice, thank you very much for doing this interview with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Trento Larix and I'm interviewing my sister, a grade 11 pupil at Herschel. My first question today is, do you know who the Khoisan are?
I know that they were an indigenous tribe in Africa. That's pretty much all I know.
Thank you for that. My second question is, do you know how they lived as a people?
I know that they were hunter-gatherers, so they hunted the food that they ate and they collected things, and that's like all the possessions that they had. I know that they were nomadic, so they like moved around as a tribe. I know that they lived in the Stone Age, so like before metal, they used animal bones as tools and stones. Okay, that's all I know.
Thanks for watching. I hope it was informative.
And I hope you enjoyed it.